G'day and welcome to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. Today we're going to be reviewing a carnage round 18, giving our bogs and flogs, giving you our chopping block targets and also our trade targets. Let's go!
Just done it from nowhere. Fighting the goal from inside the centre. Sheen from the boundary. Dusty. Petty. Petrarca. Oh, wow. How good is that? The legend becomes immortal.
G'day and welcome again to the Ball Boys AFL Fantasy Podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Casey, and you can find me on Twitter at Ball Boys Fantasy, joined as always by my co-host, Luke Rogerson. How are you, mate?
Good, mate. I didn't actually watch too much footy on the weekend, but I'm probably glad I didn't, based on what I was seeing from the scores.
Yeah,
it was pretty stinky stuff, really, wasn't it?
You were out hiking around the world, doing...
Around the world.
Might as well have been.
I did the Kokoda Challenge up here in Queensland. You go through the Gold Coast hinterland, and 48 Ks we covered with the group from school. It took us 14 hours. We started at 10 o'clock and finished just before midnight.
Yeah,
something
wow.
around
Fair
that.
effort, mate.
So, I'm feeling it today.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm probably glad I wasn't watching some of those games, because I would have been...
I don't know who had a harder weekend. You hiking for 48 hours, or me sitting on the couch watching my shit team of an AFL Fantasy team. But
at least everyone's team was kind of pretty rubbish this week. So,
man, this was one of the more frustrating rounds I've watched in AFL Fantasy for a long time. I guess, when we had all the carnage last round, I was sitting here, grinning like a Cheshire cat, as you sort of said. I was a little bit kissed, you could say. I dodged the Tom Green bullet, dodged the Sarong bullet. I had the Darcy Cameron, but he was in my trade plans anyway. Sheldrick was an easy trade out as it was. Didn't have any Youngs or Jake Lord. So I missed all the carnage.
You were licking your lips, weren't you?
I had my ordinary regular team of 22 premiums on my field, and they just shat the bed. They honestly just shat the bed. I had only 11 players ton up of my 22. A player like Windhager I had in my team on my bench, which a lot of teams who had the misfortune or the unluckiness they were forced to put him on their ground.
You want to have it both ways.
Look, my good luck didn't actually turn into actual good luck when it came to scoring. So for me, when I thought at the start of the round I was going to have a big jump forward in the rankings, I went up a measly 11 spots and actually, lost ground in the top 100. So very, very frustrating round for me.
That's right. I think it was frustrating all round for most people. So we'll, we got some good fortune, we got some bad fortune. That's the way it goes.
Yes. So that'll do for my little whinge at the start of the episode. I just had to get that out of my chest. But in terms of, we started talking about this last episode, but my chase for the hat, look, I really thought I was going to make a jump this week, but it's looking less and less likely that I'm going to get there. I could still get there with a bit of luck, but right now I'm 260 points away from the 100 ranked team, which is 17 further away than I was last round. So, look, never say never, but it's getting less and less likely as the weeks go on, with only 6 weeks to go. So
that's right,
we'll
mate.
see how we go. But let's stop talking about my team and let's go into the segment here.
And the winner of the Norm Smith Medal.
You're an embarrassment to what you do, mate. You're an embarrassment.
Yes, plenty of embarrassments this round to go through, but let's start with Sydney versus Bulldogs. I'm going to give the best on ground to the guy who just keeps getting it done, and I think from memory, I think he might actually be the highest ranked midfielder in the game now, excluding Clayton Lawler, who's obviously still got his 118 average, but Marcus Bontempelli.
The Bond is killing it, hey? And we both started with Bond, didn't we?
We did,
yes.
So
I feel
one
like
of the best
that's
picks of my team.
Yeah, correct. I was just going to say that. There's not been a lot of guys that have stayed there and stood the test of time at the Oxlongs, but Bont has been a pillar.
Yes,
so well done to you, Bont. Now, I mentioned this on our live show Friday, but for me, I got a selfish flog because Caleb Daniel, I traded him in as my DPP option from Darcy Cameron. I couldn't quite get to Sicily, which is where I want to go, and there's a story to that as well, of course. But went to Caleb Daniel, and he dropped his lowest score for the entire year.
Yeah.
So the benefit of the flexibility with the DPP is hopefully going to help me with my trades this week. But watching that on it was Thursday night, wasn't it?
It was terrible, yeah.
That was floggery
the
of
roll
the
was
highest
there.
order.
The roll was there, but he just couldn't get near it, was lacking the tackles and marks that he normally gets.
So I know that's a unique flog, but I'm being selfish. I'm going to give the flog out.
There were plenty of flogs in this game as well. Shout out to Jack McRae and Callum Mills, who I know a few people out there have as well, who are also sort of just floating around that 70 mark. So lots of floggish behaviour there. Next game, Melbourne versus Brisbane. Best on ground. Bit of a throwback one here. Not many people would have him in their teams, but Maxi Gawn, without Brodie Grundy, just put on absolute clinic. I want to say that he had the highest score for the round with a 162 points. Just put on an absolute masterclass. I think in that other format, in the Supercoach format, he did put up a 200,
didn't he?
Yeah.
I saw that.
So I think one of the biggest scores ever over in that format.
That's
so he's had a big game, and I reckon that probably pushes Grundy out of the side and he doesn't get back in.
Well, this is the thing. So let's say they persist with this and Grundy doesn't play. If you've got Marshall and English as your ruck combo, you're not trading off either of them to go to Gawn. This could really be a sickening watch for the next few weeks if he keeps doing stuff like that and there's no realistic way to bring him in. He missed the DPP by, 0.01% or something.
Look, if you don't have an English Marshall combo, if you've got some other ruck in
this
there,
could be
go to Gawn this week.
A gift, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could really pay off because he did that against Brisbane, who are normally restrictive.
The big O.
And he comes up against Adelaide and Richmond the next 2 weeks, and Richmond will just have Soldo there for the last game because that'll be the third game for Nanks. So, a couple of easy matchups in terms of fantasy points coming up.
I'd love to be bringing him in as a forward this week, and that brings me to the flog. My flog for this one is DPP percentages because when you see that he's got the solo ruck mantle and there's really no feasible way to bring him in, that just sucks. But the other person as well. Yes. Again, I wasn't watching this game, but actually, no, I wasn't watching this game, but watching the scores, and Lachie Neale, 19 points in the first half.
Oh, just awful. And there's no excuse. I don't think he was getting... I watched the second half of this game, but based on what I could see, no tag or anything like that. Just sucked.
That's tough. And Lachie Neale, to be fair, he's given us a few really good weeks. Yeah. So a little bit of a grace period, but Lachie Neale, don't give us any of that again.
No, Dunkley, Melbourne have actually been a good matchup the last few weeks as well. So
that was stinky of the highest order. So no good.
No good, Lachie. All right, Collingwood versus Freo, best on ground. Nick Dacos feels like a very standard thing to say when we're talking about a Collingwood game.
It really does. Hey,
Nick Dacos.
Now the flog for me is just the Dacoses, because it's got nothing to do with football, but I think I've said this before. How just irrelevant and emasculated and insignificant do you feel watching the Dacoses get around?
They're so good. Although I'm a Dacos lookalike, by the way. So
that's
for the rest of you guys.
That's one of the shittest takes I've ever heard.
I'm running with it.
I'm fairly certain that was your burner account. But
just sneakily, just behind the desk while I was on live.
But serious, one family can't steal all the talent like that. Yeah. Speaking of stealing talent, did you see what Steph Curry did today and yesterday?
Hole in one. Yeah.
Right. Hole in one, and then he went and won that comp that he was playing in.
Bloody spare some talent for the rest of us, mate.
The greatest shooter of all time, and then goes and just kills it on the golf course too.
He must be the most coordinated human on the face of the planet. Just the coordination.
Like you said, leave some talent for us plebs, eh?
Yeah, fair enough. All right, Gold Coast versus St Kilda. I've got two. I couldn't split these two, but best on ground, Sam Flanders.
Oh, Dossie will be frothing
coming
that.
out and the post Stewie Jew party that he had on the field there. Biggest score, I think, for the game.
Mate,
check me there, but had a massive game, and he was the cheap forward that we all should have gone for.
I can't wait to listen to the pod this week, because I reckon Dossie might need to change his shorts after that game.
Maybe there's a new song or something coming on, I don't know. But and then also Marcus Windhager, like I said before, in everyone's moment of need, not mine, he came out with 100, and I think, again, I want to say his biggest score of the season, so... stood up when everyone needed him the most, when a lot of people had him on field. So, big game for him.
I put this flog in before. We had a bit of a chat before we threw the headsets on, and you said that Noah Anderson, in terms of football, played a really, really good game. But like I said, I didn't get to watch this one, but watching the score, it didn't feel good from where I was standing. So,
I reckon he probably got the 3 votes in terms of the Brownlow. Probably got the coaches' votes as well. But just didn't have the fantasy score.
Missing those marks, and as a guy that you trade in to be a premium 110, 115 guy, we can't be copping mid-80s. So sorry, Noah, but flog one for this game.
Can I show you a quick story about the Marcus Windhager thing?
You may.
My superstition, that I don't check scores until the end of every quarter.
Yes, yep.
it bit me in the ass in this game.
What'd you do?
Because there was an overlap between the Gold Coast St Kilda game, which I think started that weird time at 2:10, and the next game, Carlton versus Port Adelaide, which started, I think, at like 4:25 or 4:30 or something like that. And so by the time that game had ended, the Carlton-Port Adelaide game had started. So I didn't check to see Marcus Windhager's score until after the game,
So
and
you
it
could've-
scored 100. So I could have looped it instead of a Ben Keys by putting a Bins on my field, who obviously played in the next game.
Right.
But he had like a 46-point last quarter, so he actually wasn't tracking for that good of a score.
So you would have had to do it a little prematurely.
Yeah, so I would have had to be like, oh, okay, actually he's going good here. But my bloody superstition got in the way because I didn't check until the last.
It's not a superstition
siren.
anymore.
Yeah.
Do you think that you'll persist with that after it's come back to bite
Well,
you?
now I've got to really just have a look at my loops and maybe check the loops every now and again because,
man.
that's something that wasn't really on my radar that game.
Knowing you two, that
I
really
could
would
have
have
saved 30 points there.
that really would have played on your mind too.
I was pissed off. Ellie and I went for a walk and I was fuming. I was fuming.
I'm sure Ellie enjoyed that.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the Carlton Port Adelaide game.
Okay.
Best on ground, Dan Houston, just again, 150. We know he does these ceiling scores. Not many people would have him, but everyone who did have him was shouting at high praises on Twitter. I swear I saw more Dan Houston owners on Twitter than I've ever seen the whole season. But good on him.
He's a guy that's frustrating, isn't he? Because with a guy like that, with the pedigree, you just do something like that every week, Dan, so we can just lock you in as a top 6 defender, but he's just so inconsistent.
He's come out and gone huge this round, so yeah.
Now, for me, the Butters injury is the flog here. Not Butters himself, because you're not going to give it to a guy who has an injury. But I think from what I could see, he was tracking for a really good score at halftime. I think he had like 60 points to halftime. He had like 6 in the third quarter, and then he sat the last quarter. So what's the latest that we've heard with the Butters injury?
Yeah, so we'll go into that a little bit later, but it was a bit of groin soreness.
Bit of groin soreness.
Which is...
We've all been there, Zach. We've all been there.
Have we? But yes, so I think, it's not the best news. Reports are that he's feeling good at the moment, but yeah, it was just a bit stiff, I think, after that half-time.
Bit stiff after a groin injury, you reckon? Normally you're a bit stiff before a groin injury.
All right, moving right along. Geelong versus Essendon, best on ground. Sweet. Fuck all in this game. There was nothing.
Did you watch it?
No, I didn't watch the game, but I'm just looking at the scores, and there was really nothing of relevance in this game. Geelong and Essendon. Essendon had a few poor scorers there. I could have given it to Parrish, but that's,
Just
didn't
a low
get a ton.
100. Was it not even a ton?
Yeah, 93. It's nothing really to write home about. How about we do this? How about best on ground goes to Brian Myers for being...
That's 2 weeks in a row for Grind.
For
that
Brian
he's turned
Myers.
up. Yeah. He got like a 120 last week.
He's the best thing since Lionel Messi. Have you seen this quote?
I have seen that getting around on Twitter.
Yeah, so, we'll give it to him. How about that?
Well, sort of linking in with that, the flog behaviour is... Tommy Stewart, I don't even know whether he knows whether he's a premium or not. There's like low hundreds, there's 70s. He'll go like 3 quarters with a 60, and then he'll give you a 40-point last quarter. Tom Stewart, I think he's going to be...
reverse this time around, had an 11-point last quarter.
Yeah, there's no problems. He's going to be there or thereabouts as far as your top 6 defenders. But just week to week, you just don't know what you're really going to get, do you?
It's frustrating. He's frustrating.
Not much to write home about for that game.
We'll talk about him maybe in another segment later. Adelaide versus GWS, best on ground to me goes to Rory Laird. He was fighting through a bit of a shoulder sting on the weekend as well in that last quarter, but went massive in that last quarter again. And I just have one question for you, Rory. Where the fuck was this the last 2 weeks when I had the captaincy on you, mate? Look, we know you can do it, so do it when it counts. But fair enough, though. He came out and put out another 131. I think that's his 3rd time having that exact score. So bog to Rory Laird.
Now, his midfield mate here in Ben Keys is going to get the flog award here. I saw his score of 70 again. Didn't watch the game. I was wandering in the forest. Saw his score of 70. I thought, he must have had the forward roll. Like, he mustn't have been anywhere near it. He had the second highest CBAs of the game.
Great roll.
And he scored a 70.
This is my Saturday in a fucking nutshell right here. Is this guy who's like lowly owned 30%, I think, in the top 100, and just had the role, was in and amongst it, but just couldn't get near it. He was playing more of a defensive role. I don't know if it was a hard tag per se, but he's definitely responsible for Josh Kelly and at times Cogs.
He's shown he can score in that role, but...
Exactly. So, to me, this is infuriating because he has the role that I want him to have, not like what he did a few weeks ago when he scored his 130. So he kicked a goal in that as well. So very frustrating the fact that 70 points when a few other forwards went big. So
that's a rough one. I think I'm actually glad that I was wandering in the forest and not watching with you on Saturday.
Frustrating round of
sounds
footy.
like it wouldn't have been an enjoyable watch.
Yeah. Anyway, let's
Next game, what do we got?
Best on ground, LDU, who you were considering bringing in, but
Until you told me not to, you prick.
Look, I'll apologise. I apologise for everyone who I talked out of. I said he was still an option, but one I was nervous about bringing in this week, and turns out that was wrong. We were worried about the tag, didn't come. 138, massive score.
I know you don't fully agree with me here, but I feel like this year we have lost more points through worrying about a tag than we have through an actual tag. Like, okay, hear me out.
I'll agree with you in that statement retrospectively. What I think I disagree with is that I don't want to throw out, okay, there's a tag, I'm not going to worry about it, because I still think that's
a little
piece
irresponsible
of information that we need to take into consideration.
Yeah, look, I agree. If you copped like the Josh Kelly 30, like if you copped that
Season
scenario,
over.
it sucks. I get that. But you think about the amount of times like we've gone, we can't go captain there, 150. Not sure we go there. Then we get the LDU. So I don't know. I think it's tough, but it's not just us. Lots of the other podcasts mention it, talk about it. So just a really interesting one, worth discussing.
It is an interesting one. Yeah, I agree.
Now,
Flog.
Speaking of tags, Sicily copped the Ford tag.
Oy, but yes, he did. Eddie
You
Ford.
like that was pretty highbrow, eh?
Yeah, very high.
Eddie Ford, who was also the Ford for anyone who was not sure where I was off
Way
to
to
with
spell
it.
it out. But the bloke who tagged Sicily, you've got written here. Filled that in for you. It was Eddie Ford.
Thank you for that. Did you see?
There was a period where I think you mentioned this, that Zeeble was playing a bit on him as well.
Yeah,
but
sometimes what they'll do is, right, with a guy like Sicily, they might. So with Ford, they said, "Hey Ford, you go to Sicily." But what sometimes they'll do is they'll say, rather than like tagging him per se, they'll put a player on him that they know will keep him somewhat accountable.
Yeah.
And it seemed like in patches there, Zeeble went to him and was going high up the ground, was leading up. And what that means is that Sicily then has to make the decision, do I go up with Zeeble or do I drop off and impact the contest? So I think there was a little bit of both. But did you see the thing on Twitter with Ford counting his stats?
Yeah.
That was
I
good
like
stuff.
That. I like that. That's good gear.
Bit of banter.
Not good for those who traded him in. But, there was a slight flag, again, talking about tags and things like that earlier. This is a guy that if you there was a flag that I think they tagged Stewart the week before North did. So,
do you want to use this time to gloat about your spicy take from Friday as well?
Yeah, spicy take got up. Let's play the sound grab. Is this the first spicy take that genuinely got over the line?
For you, yeah. Normally,
not one that I'm just close enough and
you're
give it to
very
myself.
liberal normally, yeah.
Just to revise, James Sicily goes sub 80 after everyone breaks their team to get him in, and I think was it 65 on the weekend. So
he almost outscored Caleb Daniels. So
nearly.
And LDU definitely outscored Steele.
Big Caleb Daniel, big 2 points there. But so obviously, I still think we'll talk about again trade targets later, but. Richmond obviously don't tag, so hopefully he can continue to be a good player for those who traded him in. West Coast versus Richmond. Richmond got the dub, thank God. Wasn't super convincing, but anyway, we got there. Best on ground. I've got Ivan Soldo here after I said no to bringing him in.
Well, that's why I've got us as the flog.
We're the flogs. Probably more me, the flog. I think I was more against it than you were.
Yeah, well, for those that weren't watching along on Friday, Bales was hitting us up in the comments about Soldo as a genuine option, and I think both of us sort of said, no. But he showed that with Nank out, he can get it done. The only caveat on that is, I don't think he's going to have 41 hitouts every week. But maybe I think Bales was considering it as the little 1 week option and then move off him. And if he had if he did go there in the end, Bales, well done.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great score for his price.
Yeah.
The risk was always, though, that, something happens, you can't get him out of your side this week.
And
it's going to be someone that sort of sits there. But
it just goes to show, don't listen to us.
Sure.
I've been saying that all year.
All right, let's talk about the Content Creators Cup. And I copped a loss this week. First one that I've had in a while. And, of course, our mate Guesty has taken his lap of victory now that he's the number one guy in the league. And
that's a conflict of interest if he gets to donate his own money.
Don't know about that. Should go to the next best coach, which at the moment is me. But
have you still got him in the overall rankings?
I've got him in the overall.
Oh, okay.
He had a massive round. I think he was 36th round rank last.
A good round to have a
round,
massive round too.
Yeah, so he's come storming in. I've still got him by I think about 50 or 60 ranks overall. And this week in the Content Creators Cup matchup, it is Guesty and I for the last week before finals.
That's worked out just perfectly, isn't it? So winner. I was going to say winner takes all, but winner takes the top seed.
Yes.
So we're doing
So
the
I don't know
finals
if
matchup.
there's any actual advantages to having the top seed, but we like to, bit of pride on the line. How did your matchup go?
I was coming home like a fucking house on fire, and it looked like if I could continue my run of form, I was going to make the 8, but I lost there on the weekend. Who'd I lose to on the weekend?
Lost to Louis.
I lost to Louis, so...
By 10 points.
Yeah, man, I've had some close games, hey. So I've lost by 10 points there, and it pretty much puts me out of the race. I think even if I win this week, I'm not going to make the 8. I think I'm close to the 8 on overall.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2 draws in there don't help either.
You're 4 points behind.
Yeah.
Look, crazier things have happened. If everyone else in front of you loses, then you have a massive win and the percentage gets you over the line. It could happen technically, but extremely unlikely. So, unfortunate there. A couple of unlucky matchups earlier in the season. But yeah, you had a good year all round, mate.
We should also mention that the Content Creators Cup is obviously an initiative put together by Guesty with his company Infinite Wealth. There's a bit of money at the end which is going to be donated to charity there, and you can see on the screen there if you would like to go to infinitewealth.com.au/AFL Fantasy. You can actually access the Infinite Wealth Fast Track to Freedom financial program, which I've sort of midway through now. I know you've done quite a bit of it as well. It's really good stuff. So check that out, and obviously the money goes for free, which is great, and the money at the end goes to a good cause. So
absolutely. All right, let's talk a bit of news from the weekend. Ooh. Okay, so we've got a little bit of news to run through today. Starting with Sydney, they had Rampy, who was offered a 2-week suspension for rough conduct.
Off the ball,
they are
they're
challenging that one at the moment, so don't know exactly the result of that just yet.
I think they'll get it down to 1. That's my feeling.
I sort of feel the same. I reckon it's probably not worth 2, but probably is still worth the 1. Melika the Pelican was injured as well. Not exactly sure what the injury was, but if he's out next round, and also I think Chad Warner is likely to come back for the Sydney Swans. The troubling thing for this one is what does it do to Callum Mills next week with a couple of defenders out and another midfielder coming back in? Could that spell bad news for Callum Mills?
I don't know if it can get worse for Callum Mills. He was
playing well in the midfield.
He was playing in the CBAs. He may as well go back and just get some cheap shit.
That was one of the weird games for him as well, because he just went missing for large chunks of that game, which was really strange.
If you have the luxury this week, you're moving on him. Like for example, I've got to get Himmelberg up to like a premium defender. But if I'd already done that move, Mills would be on the chopping block for me.
Yeah, I think he is definitely someone that I was optimistic about how he could score given his price, and I still think he's going to outscore his price fairly comfortably now.
He didn't hit his break even on the weekend.
Yeah, he's still going down. I mean, his break even is still like 70 something now, but I think 95 to 100 is not going to cut it for the midfield at this stage if you have the luxury to get him up to someone better there. So yeah, I think that is something to... If you don't have him, I definitely would be trading him in anymore with what we've seen and the ins to come in. So the next one here, Christian Petrarca. CBAs are still down.
His CBAs will be down until Fritsch comes back. And Fritsch, I don't think
he's out for 6 weeks or something like that. It might be until finals. So
that's an interesting one there. Like I don't think you're looking to trade in Petrarca, but exactly. You're not looking to trade him out because if he keeps going the way he is, he's not going to be a priority to trade out in most teams unless you're sitting in a real pretty position.
On the flip side here, Angus Brayshaw's CBAs are up. Someone who we, flagged at the start of the season when his CBAs were there.
What did he
Hasn't put up a huge score just yet. I think it was like a mid-80s score or something like that. He's coming off the back of 105 the week before, 84, 90, 85. So, last, 5 average in that sort of low 90s mark. But it is, let me actually get that proper. So, 88, 89 in his last 5 and 93 in his last 3. So, putting up decent numbers, but probably not enough to sort of entice you to go there at this stage if you already have some decent defenders there.
Now, if you're looking down the barrel of the Sean Darcy injury,
yes,
that could almost be
What do you actually have? Because I'm a bit less across the actual injury.
But
itself.
I'm talking about like that could be a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
You make the trade to
Gawn.
Gawn and you actually you make like 11k or something like that. I just checked, but that's like a no-brainer for me. I would have to imagine that Melbourne are going to persist with that single ruckman at least for like the next couple of weeks, aren't they?
Yeah, I would have to have thought so. Sean Darcy's wearing a moon boot for himself. No crutches, but that moon boot can't be good news. So have to think that he's in doubt to play this weekend. So, like you said, it's a good opportunity to go a bit different, go to Max Gawn.
Would your rank depend on that? Like if you're ranked in the top 100 and that happened to you, are you just going to go to the safe?
Probably in the top 100 if you're just looking to consolidate and get a hat.
Just going to match.
If you're outside the 100, even where I'm ranked, I'd be okay swinging for the fences. If you're back further, then I'd be okay doing that because differentiating yourself can be difficult there as well. Zach Butters was managed in his last quarter. He's getting scans tomorrow, I think is the reporting. Apparently he's feeling okay today, but groin soreness, groin stiffness. Again, that's the wording.
Don't look me in the eye and say groin stiffness.
Jesus Christ.
He's dating my sister and he just looked me in the eye and said groin stiffness.
Don't bring Ellie into this, man.
You are a piece of work, Casey. A piece of work.
Fucking hell. I want to make this awkward, mate. But is this a concern for him this week? Like, I think...
Yeah,
hell yeah. This is something that we need to be definitely concerned about and maybe making plans to have options for him to trade to.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate timing with obviously some people still holding other injuries from last week.
Yeah, it's one of those. I'm sure we'll talk about it a little bit more when we talk sort of trade targets and everything, but it's just an interesting one as well because if you're... it could, if you're looking to get aggressive, it could even be a trade even if he's named.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And
if you've got a stiffy in your groin, stiffness in your groin. It's pretty hard to play footy.
It's the gift that I can imagine you can't really tuck it under the waistband when you jog it around the park, can you? It's probably, it's not ideal. But I've just lost the track. I'm not even thinking about fantasy anymore. I'm thinking about fucking Zach Butters' peen. Let's talk about it later. We'll talk about options.
Actually,
for
can I get
later.
someone to check the heat map there? Because if you've got stiffness in the groin, I actually see the heat.
I actually checked his. No, I did. No, his heat map was real weird. I'll show you. You talk about the next thing, and I'll show you what I thought.
I've lost track of where we're up to, but Zach Butters. Keep an eye on his.
You're just butchering this.
Keep an eye on his availability for this weekend.
Oh, okay. I thought you said keep an eye on his groin.
I was letting the mind kind of fill in the blanks there. Adam Chera, I think, is a watch for this week as well. Someone who we sort of touched on as a bit of a unique play, but I don't think you can go there anymore. And coming up against the West Coast matchup as well, even if he's a bit touch and go there, I think they could hold him out as a bit of precaution there as well.
Yeah.
Geelong, we sort of touched on the fact that Merritt had a poor game.
Who tagged him?
So it was a bit of a group effort by Geelong. I think the primary guy there was O'Connor.
Tagged by committee.
I think Blitzars have a bit of a role with him at stoppages.
They got a versatile
Atkins
midfield,
can kind of sort of go with him a little bit as well. So, he kind of got attention from a few different players in that game as well and obviously affected his scoring going with an 80, which is his lowest score for a little while.
Yeah, and we often do say he is a bit susceptible to the tag. What I was talking about with the weird Butters heat map thing, it wasn't weird, but look at his... So in quarter 2, he scored 41 fantasy points, and they're all
all in this
on the
one
flank.
little spot.
It's weird,
there.
Eh? Anyway, that won't be good for the people listening along.
Yeah.
Actually, it won't even be good for people in the video. We're looking at our phone.
Yeah, very good podcast.
Is that good etiquette?
Again, another one to just monitor as well. Rory Laird. I think they've come out and said that he's feeling all right today and things like that. So positive signs from that point of view, but they are monitoring him this week just to make sure that nothing more sinister there. A bit of a collarbone. He was sort of very ginger when they were poking and prodding around on his collarbone there and went down to the rooms again at one stage. I thought he was going to be gone for that quarter, to be honest, but he came back and scored sort of, I think, 40-plus points in the last period. So
they get a big game against Melbourne this week as well, so I'd imagine.
It is a big game.
And they'll be wanting to prove themselves on the G, because last time they played at the G, I think that was the one that they ran Collingwood really close, so I think they'll be keen to prove a point.
James Sicily tagged by 84. Now, interestingly, North Melbourne versus St Kilda this week. Who do you think Eddie Ford goes to against St Kilda? My initial thoughts is
Sinclair. Is that where you were going?
I
Or
was
were you
actually thinking
Miller?
Wanganeen Miller because he's more the guy in the defensive line, whereas Sinclair plays probably more that midfield role, which I don't think they want Eddie Ford going into the mids there.
It could. I mean, if they're in love with that role, they might go to Miller, but they might also think, like, if you think about Stewart and Sicily, they're known for just being like the generals back there, whereas Miller is like kind of in the infancy of his thing. So they might just go, no, we're not going to play that role this week, but yeah, you never know. But
maybe enough of a flag, maybe not to jump on Isaiah Wanganeen Miller, but not enough to jump off.
Yeah, definitely not enough to jump off. Yeah, look, if you've got other trade-in options, then maybe explore those, but I'm going to be really hesitant to not recommend guys because of the tag anymore.
Well, Saints then come up against Hawthorn the week after, and then you've got something like the McGuinness tag, and does he go?
I'm not buying into this anymore.
Oh, okay, all right.
I missed out on LDU because of this discussion. I'm not doing it.
Fair enough. All right, and McGuinness obviously spent time on Taron Thomas for a little bit. Really random that he went to him in the first half.
You got LDU's dropped 140 on you.
I don't get that at all. But then he went to Sheasel in the third quarter and clamped into, I think, 2 touches in that third quarter as well.
Fuck, he's good,
after he went big in the first half, and then I think they dropped the tags in the last quarter as well. So, still someone we have to monitor. In my opinion, you're obviously off the tags, but I still think it makes me nervous. So, all right, let's move on to the next one here. Okay.
Nice. Forgot to put your headband on.
All right, it's on now.
Nice.
Chopping block. All right, any red dot you're still holding, so a few people might still be having a few guys on their bench, or were on their bench in the last game, last round, that could be still missing. If you had hit with a few injuries, I think they all still need to go, obviously. All rookies, if you can get them up to a best 22 or a premium, you still need to do that. That goes without saying. And now, again, we'll go through these sort of non-best 22 guys that can be moved on. Top of my list here, which I think you're sounding like you're wanting to trade this guy, is Harry Himmelberg.
So Harry Himmelberg is my guy at this stage on the chopping block. That could change depending on how much carnage we get this week, but I'm looking initially to use my DPP with Caleb Daniel to bring Daniel forward and then turn Himmelberg into... I've got the option of Doherty or Sicily if I can take Sheldrick down to a 200k rookie. Doherty, I know he's got the West Coast matchup. I find it hard to believe Sicily's going to be dishing up what he dished up on the weekend for the rest of the year. But the other I know I'm about to talk about it, and I said I wouldn't. But if other teams look at that and think, oh, we like that blueprint of what Eddie Ford did to Sicily, is there an option there? But
sometimes the AFL can be a bit of a copycat league, just like I think in other leagues around the world and other sports. So it can be something that teams can go, oh, that worked, even though it didn't really because they smashed them.
Yeah,
I think that's maybe what might save him because the team still did really well.
I think I'm leaning Doc. But I'm undecided.
All right, we'll talk about trade targets
but
later.
Himmelberg,
Himmelberg, I think, he's gone up a bit in cash since you traded him in, and I think it's now time to get rid of him if you can. Darcy Cameron, even if he is back, I still think is someone that, we were looking about trading him last week when we thought he was healthy, so I think he can go as well. You've got the likely suspect in there and Hayden Young, who I'm probably going to stop putting on this list as of next week because... if you still have him, if he's been on here for another few weeks now.
If you've been listening to us all year and you still have Hayden Young. I mean, to be fair, we only had him up until a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, so, sometimes we say the right thing, sometimes we don't. So, maybe not listening to us is the way to go. I want to talk about this guy here, Tom Stewart. As a guy who is highly owned, extremely highly owned.
This is a luxurious chopping block.
Is he someone that can go? Because just in a way of getting... a unique player. I think in the top 1,000 or the top 100, he's 99% owned.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see... Now, again, we touched on this before. Last year, he had 2 scores where he went absolutely crazy and had 150 plus. But prior to that last season, he was never the guy that had the ceiling. He was always that real consistent 80 to 110 kind of a player that if you didn't have him, he's not really going to hurt you.
Yeah.
But he has the chance to be sort of tagged. He has the chance also being... at Geelong, age 30 plus, rested and managed during games. We've seen them do that the last few weeks as well. Is there logic to trading out a Tom Stewart just by getting off someone who's super popular?
Well, let me ask you a couple of questions sort of like in return to that. So if we're entertaining the possibility of moving Stewart, first question is, are you moving in before guys like, let's say, Will Day, Callum Mills, Zach Butters this week, these guys? And the second part of that question is, who are you moving to?
I think, yes, you're moving him before Will Day.
Okay. Yep.
I wouldn't have said that maybe a week or two ago, but Will Day's getting it done. And we also talked about the run for Sicily. Will Day obviously has the same run and has a good few matchups up against Richmond this week, St Kilda the week after, Collingwood the week after that. So all good matchups for midfielders. So for me, his opponents are going in his favour. So who are the other people you said ahead of?
Like Mills and then Butters this week with a cloud. Like
Butters, if he's good to go and we get some good reporting, I think you'd hold Butters because he's got the good role. And
Callum Mills, surely you're moving Mills before you move Stewart.
But the only thing about Mills is he's so cheap, it can be hard to get to him, to someone that you're pretty happy with. Although there are some cheaper mids that are going around in terms of like Steele, Took, LDU. So Mills, you probably could look to get rid of him, but he's more unique. So he's probably kind of in that kind of ballpark, and he is the next guy on my list here in Callum Mills. Definitely someone that these two players are players that I'm considering trading out this week. My plan was always to get in Sicily this week. It was going to be from a Will Day. Then I was considering a Tom Stewart, but I'm also considering just doing a Callum Mills to him and having a defender in my midfield. So it's all a little bit all over the place in terms of how I split it, but you think Mills goes before Tom Stewart in that instance? Say they're both going to Sicily?
Well, Stewart gave us a stinky one on the weekend, but he did have 3 consecutive hundreds prior to that. They were low hundreds, and one of those hundreds was saved, to be fair. But like, what has Mills given us over the last 4 weeks? It's been dog shit.
He gave us a 92, 71, and an 85. So
like, I get that there's the price factor there.
Yeah.
But I think I'd be...
We can only be patient for so long.
Well, if I could move... Let's say I could move like Mills to an LDU, or I could move Stewart to a Sicily, I think I'd choose Mills to an LDU this week. I think I'd prefer that than a Stewart to a Sicily.
Yeah. Would you go with Sicily over an LDU?
Oh, sorry. So you're thinking of doing that DPP?
Yeah.
LDU's end of his season last year was...
It was big.
It was big. It was
like
elite.
108 or something like that.
So I'm kind of like thinking to myself, is this a repeat of what we saw at the end of last year? And so how confident are we? Exactly. They've got a great run. How confident are we that he continues to do what he's done in the last 2 weeks?
I don't know if I'm letting emotion get in the way, but he just fucking burnt me earlier in the year, and it sort of shaken my trust a little bit. But he's gone 122, 138 in his last 2. Now, we don't get those scores, but again, coming up against the Saints and West Coast in the next 2 matchups.
He strikes me as I obviously don't know him from a bar of soap, but he strikes me as a guy that is really like a confidence operator as well, just in the way he acts on the field and his demeanour. Like,
he looked very hungry for the ball on the weekend. Actually, he was really sort of looking for those like cheap 45 kind of kicks,
which is chalk and cheese to what we saw at the start.
So he had 10 marks, 9 tackles. So
that's a fantasy game.
That is a fantasy game. So look, he did all that. I think only on 26 disposals. So 26 disposals, 10 marks, 9 tackles, kicked a goal.
It's good shit, hey?
That's real good.
Look, to be perfectly honest, if I'm shitty that I'll have to wait another week, but if Caleb Daniel actually pulls his finger out this week and plays well, then my next week's trades are probably going to be looking to get Mills to LDU somehow.
Yeah.
So,
A couple other players who are thorns in my side. It feels like I'm just reading out the players in my team right now, but Jack McRae, Ben Keys in the forward line. Now, if Dunkley is back, are we ticking off, or do we think it's a play to move on a McRae or a Keys and go straight up to a Josh Dunkley off his injury?
If you don't have any other things that you want to fix up, I keep using Himmelberg as an example because I own him, but somebody in that bracket, Himmelberg, Darcy Cameron, though, if you've got nothing else to fix up, and also depending on your rank. So if I'm like looking at the top 100 and I'm right in there amongst it, I'm probably not risking a guy off a soft tissue niggle the first week back, especially with a 150 break even.
Yep.
But if I'm, let's say, where you are and I want to swing for the hat and I think that he could be, a point of difference, he can put up a 140.
Yeah.
So, I think there's like, I was going to say merit, there's merit too, but there's logic to going either way depending on where you're positioned as well.
Yeah, these are sort of the moves that I'm finding this week in particular very difficult. Like, could you go? And this is the hardest part of the season. I've said it so many times, but
who do the Lions play?
They play Geelong at the Gabba. Now, the other thing about Josh Dunkley, he's got 150 break even, so he will get a little bit cheaper. I would have to assume. Coming off a calf, 2-week calf,
soft tissue. Yeah, calves too.
It doesn't strike me as like go there.
But it's like a ballsy play, you would agree.
It is.
Hey, it's like one of those
and
ones.
if you get someone like a McRae to him.
Yeah. Imagine McRae pops an 80 and he comes out, does a 140 and no one else owns him.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a good differentiator. So that's something I could definitely consider. And what about his teammate, or Dunkley's teammate, that is, in Lockie Neal? I've got him a bit further down the list, but again, kind of a similar thing to like a Tom Stewart. He is quite popular.
I'm giving him that
grace
period.
His role's friendlier, but yeah.
I'm giving him a week's grace.
My only concern is this week coming up against Geelong. Do they do a similar thing to him as what they did with Merritt
Tagging
last
by
week?
committee at stoppage.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely the potential for it. Neil does like playing at the Gabba, but I think his scoring at the Gabba is pretty...
Yeah. I think he's a very luxury move. It could be a play that if you told me that he goes and scores another 80 this week and you could have got him. And the other thing, he's got a good price on his head, 906,000. So
yeah, it's probably the top of his price.
You could make a really nice play if you just sideways him to someone like for example, a Darcy Parish or something like that. Like say you did 2 little sideways moves with like a Stewart to someone, you banked a little bit of cash, and then a Neal sideways. I think there's a decent play.
Yeah, if you could do like Stewart to LDU via DPP and then that's actually trades are decent.
Well,
but they're very luxurious, aren't they?
There's merit to that if you're not left with much cash and you're just looking for something real cheap to do.
Man, I wish I was in a position to be entertaining these luxury trades.
Oh, I know. And the last couple of guys in here, I've got Caleb Daniel.
You just put this on the list to rub it into me, have you? You prick.
Well, Caleb Daniel, is he someone that you say you trade in like yourself? Is he go straight back out the next week because obviously he's put up a dud score, or do we just sort of think that's a shit game? He's still the same role and he's put up the scores prior to that in the same role? I
think I have to assume the latter. I've got him or Himmelberg. Like, who are you trading out based on their previous scoring?
Yeah.
You're trading out Himmelberg. There might be other people in the boat that traded him in this week. But it'd feel just dirty to trade him in, cop a bad score, and have to trade him out again. So I'm gonna hold
Sydney's a somewhat difficult matchup, especially for a player like him that relies on getting a few marks and some space. Sydney with that narrow.
I thought you were going to say short.
That too,
prick.
But he's got a much better run coming up with Essendon, GWS, Richmond, Hawthorn, and West Coast, with 3 of those games being under the roof at Marvel. So
with his scoring, I mean, like if he bounces back, there's every chance I could hold him for the next 5 weeks. Like the way he was scoring.
He's probably a guy that could potentially still be in and amongst the top scorers in either defence or the forward line, but it is just that question mark over that final spot in the forward and defence.
Yeah, and what Bevo chooses to do with him too.
Yeah, also you always have to consider the Bevo factor. I threw out the Jack Singler and Isaiah Wangani Miller I questioned before with the threat of the tag, but I agree that you're probably not jumping at those shadows, but I'm still nervous about bringing them in if you don't have them. Yeah, all right, let's talk about some trade targets to bring in. Number 1, in terms of defenders, you had this question for your team. I personally have Sam Doherty at number 1, and I would be bringing him over Sicily if you didn't have either. But I do have Sicily at number 2.
So the West Coast matchup is just like a friendly matchup in general. Doherty's been playing more on the wing. Is there any flags to that in terms of this matchup, or just in general?
No, 0. It's
what
West Coast.
did you
they
watch?
Give out points to everyone.
It's just green across the board.
It's just green.
Did you get a chance to watch the Carlton? It was Carlton Port Adelaide.
No, I didn't get to a chance to watch
Doherty
that
scored
one.
poorly.
I was still fuming because I didn't get my loop, so I was giving fantasy a miss after that. So yeah,
it's terrible how much we let it influence our demeanor.
Yeah. There was a point there where I sort of went, I'm not having a fun time, so I turned the TV off.
Throwed his toys.
I've thrown it all out. I've thrown it all out of the cot. So, but yes, no, I missed that game, but I believe he was still. I'll have a look at his heat map now, but the last few weeks he was playing a bit of that wing role. He does sometimes move to defence if he needs to, so he's just kind of doing what he likes, I guess.
James Sicily, obviously, you mentioned at number 2. The fact that he scored poorly this week, I don't think would deter me from jumping on, personally. The only little thing that I said is that potentially, like, do teams take that blueprint and run with it? But, I mean, they play Richmond this week. We know that Richmond are just, like, they're probably the most anti-tag team in the league. Like I still think there's going to be a temptation for me to go to Sicily, but his break even, I'd imagine, would be a little bit higher now.
Yeah, I think it's in the hundreds now.
Yeah, so
115.
So there's the possibility to maybe do, if you want to get both of those guys, to do them in consecutive weeks.
2 little flags for Sicily. One, I want to keep an eye on whether Blank is named for Hawthorn, and if he's going to be the third tall guy or if he's going to be the second tall.
Yeah. Somebody tweeted about that. I thought it was a really good tweet.
So keep an eye on that one as well. And also, we look at Richmond and we go, oh, yeah, easy matchup. But actually, in the last 10 games, again, according to DFS Australia, Richmond are actually not giving up as many points to defenders as we are accustomed to. So in terms of the designated kicker, only 52% of those players are reaching their average. And in terms of the general defenders, only 43% are reaching their average there. So they're actually very average matchup, even slightly below average for defenders recently. So he won't quite get that huge sugar hit until the week after against St Kilda. So just keep that in mind. Richmond are not as quite of a friendly matchup for defenders as they were maybe under Dimmer.
Slightly cheaper, you could have a look at Luke Ryan. So he's probably going to save you sort of 60k from Sicily, sort of 40-odd K from Doherty, and we know he's a guy that's got a huge ceiling, so he could be the guy that you might look to trade in again if you're looking to look for a point of difference and really rise up the ranks.
Yep.
He can give you a 140, but he showed on the weekend he can give you a sub 100 as well.
Yeah,
so
for sure. I don't love his run coming up, but I've said for a number of weeks now that I do, and I am a big fan of the Luke Ryan unique play because he's had 2 140s in his last 4 games. He's substituting 90s for 140s. So I guess he's due for a 140 this week.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at it over the course of it, you're looking at average anyway, aren't you? So
there's 120 right there.
Yeah.
All right, and then the last guy here, we sort of flagged it earlier, but Angus Brayshaw.
I don't think you're going there. I don't think in any situation you go in there. I know the role is looking more friendly, but this is the kind of thing that you look at earlier in the season, don't you?
I think the flag here is that Clayton Oliver is, hopefully, fingers crossed, getting close to return. Probably not this week, but maybe on the horizon after that. And it's just another variable that you probably don't want to be having to deal with this time of year.
And am I right in saying this is the kind of value hunt you might go on earlier in the season, not right now necessarily?
But, in saying that though,
change in role.
Last year I think he averaged 110 points to the last 5.
There, hey?
So he does have that ceiling to be in and amongst the top 6 defenders, but I think just because I'm not certain and guarantee he's going to be there for the rest of the year, that's why I probably wouldn't go there. But, if you've got bigger balls than me, you could definitely do it.
Now, no surprise here. We're looking at some trade targets in the midfield, and LDU is top of the list. I've got a sort of selfish question for you. If you miss this week, can you go next week? He'll be more than 800k next week. You reckon he'll be like 830, 840?
Yes, his break-even's 52. He'll have West Coast the week after. So, yes, you can still go then. You can still go another week later. So, yeah, you definitely could. So, he's cheap enough that he's not going to completely get away from you. You don't have to go this week. He is a good option this week just because of what he's been doing, what his run is coming up, and what he's done in the past in terms of last season.
Prioritize. So we're mixing midfielders and defenders now, but prioritize him versus Doherty and Sicily this week. Do you have him above them?
The West Coast matchup to me is just instant sugar hit, and we're at that point of the season now. Yeah, where we do. I said before, we can't judge a trade by 1 week.
Yeah,
we're at the point now where we kind of have to because there's not many weeks left for those trades to really work out. So you do want that instant sugar hit now. So that's why Doherty to me would still be above him. He might come in above Sicily potentially, just based on the value in terms of points per dollar.
Yeah,
and his run moving forward. So I like that. But yeah, I think Doherty's still just with this week, he's going to come up and put a big score. Jack Steele's also pretty close. I had LDU and Steele pretty close, and I had a tough time splitting with them. I've gone LDU just because he's a little bit cheaper than Steele in terms of my rankings here. But I might also say that Steele probably averages more for the rest of the season. What do you think? Who do you think averages more if price is an issue between the two? Actually, I think
it's tough as well. I think the betting man in me kind of goes with the pedigree and Steele, but then when I think about what LDU did to finish the season last year, when I think about the matchups that LDU's got, when I think about the fact that there's zero competition in there in terms of his teammates, he
What's
is
Simpkin
that
doing?
guy.
Is he back this week?
I just feel like LDU could easily give him a run for his money.
Yeah, and I think he did all that last year with Simpkin there, so it didn't matter then in terms of him putting up those scores to finish.
That's a tough one.
Season.
But let's just say, I guess my opinion is I wish I'd traded in LDU last week. So that probably gives you some insight into my mind.
So he only had a concussion, so he probably will be back.
Yeah.
So maybe that's a slight flag. I probably say Steele averages more, but it's close, and that's why I've ranked LDU in front.
If you're looking to get a little bit more spicy with those midfield picks, you could go with some points of difference here. You go Took Miller, Darcy Parish, and Caleb Sarong. Caleb Sarong would obviously be the ultimate point of difference at this point. I did see a couple of people out there.
A few people might have held with more of the carnage.
That held, which, but I think he'll still be reasonably polished. There would be a few people that jumped off there. So of those three guys, Took, Parish, and Sarong, you're going Took?
Yeah, I think Took he's the lowest price. He's also got the highest ceiling in terms of seasons gone past. So I think he's a good buy at the stage. Coming up against the Giants with no Tom Green, that definitely helps.
Yeah.
So his run's okay moving forward. His time on ground took another little bump up, 76%. So I still think that could go up again to sort of like the mid to low 80s. So he could definitely come home the back end of the season with a wet sail. And I think the other one, who we're talking about, Parish.
Yeah.
So Parish is another interesting one. A tougher matchup this week against the Bulldogs, who just possess the ball. And we know that Parish needs good possessions to get his score. And another tough one against Sydney, but then he plays the back-to-back of West Coast and North. So potentially you get Took now and wait a couple of weeks for Parish. But I do think that he is still a good guy to trade in, because we've said before, like he doesn't go below 80. Like he's only had one score below 90 and only 4 scores below 100 this year. So he's shown a very high floor. Cass just come and said hello just while we're recording. Making himself comfy.
Very comfy down there.
Well, how would you rank those guys in a similar way, or are you a bigger fan of Sarong or
I think I like
Parish?
Sarong because I owned him for so long and he was really good to me. So I think maybe I have a little bit of a bias there, but like you said, I mean, Took's got that ability to be super consistent and give you that big ceiling as well. And I
think Sarong just has the hardest draw out of all of them outside of a round 22 matchup with the Eagles. He goes Sydney, Geelong, Brisbane, then he goes the Eagles, but then he goes Port again, and also potentially a Hawthorn tag in round 24. So
yeah, I think that's fair enough.
For me, he's got the hardest run of those guys, but
I don't really feel you can go
the whole year.
I don't really feel you can go too wrong. Now, let's talk about some forward trade-in targets. We had a couple of question marks here.
Sarong, sorry, just to cut you in. Sarong's now 30% in the top 1,000, dropped by 23%.
Okay.
Over the last week, so
a little bit more pottish.
Yeah.
Dunkley up forward. We kind of discussed him a little bit before, so you kind of sort of got our thoughts there. I think
ultimately you can wait a week.
Yeah.
But he is the kind of type that if you do go early, could reward you.
He could.
Especially if you're getting off a guy that could burn you on the other side.
And if price is sort of irrelevant to you at this point in the season and break even is irrelevant, you could just go and swing for the fences. You got Cogs here as well, so if you don't own Cogs, you could jump on him. You get sort of semi-modest score this week. But
I think, again, the Tom Green injury helps him in terms of there's a lot of scoring that had to have been shared during the GWS midfield. I think that helps him. And then the boy we talked about before in the Bogs and Flogs, Sam Flanders, is he a legit option?
Well, this is what I was going to just ask you a follow-up question. It's actually just dawned on me. I'm actually terrible when I get on the AFL app. I don't know if anyone else does this as well, but I actually don't pay attention to the score in the game before I check the fantasy. It's just I'm just like straight in fantasy scores, and then I come back and I'm like, oh, Gold Coast rolled St Kilda.
Yeah, why do we care about the result?
What was the go there? You watched that game? Did Gold Coast lift because they sacked their coach, or what's
they pretty much controlled the game from start to finish
up here on the coast as well.
It was
so do you think that the fact, because that's what I wanted to check before we talked about Sam Flanders, was like, okay, Gold Coast have played well and they've got to win, and Sam Flanders was instrumental in it. There's no chance he's not in the CBA's next week,
I think that's his role. I think he's probably going to be the 4th CBA attendee at the Gold Coast. Like, he's taking that swallow role, basically moving forward. And the question here is that enough to be close enough to a top 6 forward? So say, for example, a scenario where Butters doesn't get up for this weekend.
Yeah.
Could you go him
Make a cash
down
grab.
to a Flanders and then get an upgrade on the other end? Say if you've got someone like a Hillenberg you want to upgrade, is that a play? Say you've already got a Cogs, you've already got a Goulden, a Taranto. You're not too keen on jumping on a Dunkley the first week. None of those other guys are really screaming pick me at this stage.
Yeah, I think you could. And I think everything that we kind of say, and probably getting the vibe, everything for me is a bit rank dependent. Like it's not something I'd be advocating for if you're like right in the thick of things up the top.
Yep.
I personally, I'm going to make my cash from Sheldrick this week because I didn't get to move on him last week. But if it's a different creative way that you can generate some cash to get someone else to where you want to go, then yeah, I don't think it's the worst move in the world.
Yeah, I actually think it's a decent play in the right circumstance. I think the Butters thing is probably the circumstance that sticks out to me the most. But yeah, interesting.
If Butters doesn't get up for the game, do you think, or do you think you'd be ballsy enough to make it even if he is named?
I'd be very watching the wording of the club and things like that, and sort of see if he's moving well or if it's like we're going to give him every chance to get up, and then he gets up on the last. Like that would make me nervous, and I'd even want to trade.
Those groin injuries can knock you about a bit. So
you'd hate to play footy with a stiff groin. All right, let's move on to some questions.
Did we get any questions?
Yeah, we got a shit ton of questions.
Did we?
First question here I've got from our mate Tim Guest.
Oh no, what's Guest?
Is Mitch about to choke harder than Greg Norman in the last week of the... I don't even know what this is.
What? What are you doing?
I don't know if he's misspelt that or not, but what does that say right there? Is that a
revaluation?
Revaluations? Season?
Revaluation.
I don't know what that means, but season of the Content Creators Cup. But no, mate, I had my choke week this week in preparation for this week coming out and popping out at 2600. So you had your big week last week. I took it easy, just told my guys to have a week off so that this week we get the job done.
You guys are just pacing yourselves.
I'm coming for you, Gessie. Not letting you get that minor premiership because... I've held it for the last few weeks and not giving up this easy. But yeah, let's have a look at some actual questions here. All right, Bales asks the question that we didn't really talk about these two compared to each other, but Took versus LDU. Who are you picking out of those two players?
LDU, I think, at this stage has the best upside, and knowing that Bales is ranked in a position where he's going to be wanting to really do some moving and shaking, I think for Bales, I'd be going LDU.
I'm going LDU too because of the run. I think that the matchups suit him, and that's my tiebreaker there. He's cheaper, and the run, I think, puts me over the edge there. So Toby wants to know, hypothetically, if Grundy does not come back this season, or if he does, but purely as a forward, what do you think of Gawn will average for the remainder of the season? Do you think an English or Marshall down to Gawn is a good move, factoring in the points of difference?
That would be the most luxurious, but also kind of like risque move that you could almost make. Like I feel like your team would be stacked full of uber premiums, and you're just thinking, I want to swing for the fences and I want to bank some cash to get someone else up, and it could be awesome, but it just sucks that you really don't feel like there's it feels like it's somewhat irresponsible almost.
There.
You know what I mean?
Look, I'm not going to poo-poo it. I think that there is a world where that could be a stroke of genius, where you get off someone like... And I would go Rowan Marshall, not Tim English.
Marshall gave us a 140 2 weeks ago.
He did. He
did. You know what I mean? And we're thinking about trading out a guy like that.
If we just cast our minds back a year ago, Rowan Marshall was in the thick of going absolutely crazy in AFL Fantasy, and I think it was the last round of the season, or the second last round of the season, where he dropped a really dirty 40-point game, I think it was, where Tom Campbell just randomly... It was the last game of the season, he dropped a 47.
Yeah.
Tom Campbell randomly showed up and ruined his scoring. He also has a tough run over the next couple of weeks in terms of North Melbourne, who are actually tough on rucks, and Hawthorn, which are actually one of the toughest on rucks. So Max Gawn has a good couple of rounds. Look, I'm personally not confident to do it myself, but if you wanted to throw a Hail Mary, there's a world it works.
Agreed. What do you think this means for Grundy's future? Because hear me out on this as well.
Yeah.
Like if you're Melbourne and you've made this move this week, okay, if you don't show signs of wanting to bring back Brodie Grundy, then he's as good as Gawn at the end. Like,
Yeah.
surely he's...
Good as Gawn.
Yeah. Well, he's an A-grade ruckman
Yeah.
anywhere else in the comp. There's a scenario where we could be back.
I think rumours are already flying around.
Yeah, and that's 1 week.
Yeah.
I mean, we could be back to a set and forget Gawn and Grundy next year. Let's go. What do you do then? Gawn, Grundy, English, Marshall. There's some spice at the ruck position.
Yeah, well, and the other two, the first two you mentioned will be pretty cheap, I'd imagine.
Yeah, we're already forecasting. My goodness.
Yeah, we're packing up this season.
Yeah,
And on to the next
we're
one.
done.
All right, let's move on to some other questions
Yep.
here. Luke Jackson, speaking of more rucks, Luke Jackson with Sean Darcy out. Is he a potential option? How big does he go? He's a forward. Now, a bit different to the other one, so you can put him in your forward line. So
I think I'm going to one of the guys that I don't have, either Gawn, Grundy, or Gawn, Marshall, or English.
But what if you've got Gawn and English, but you're looking to put him in your forward line? Sean Darcy, that is. Sorry, Luke Jackson, that is.
So who have you got? So you've got Gawn. How could you have Gawn and English if you had Sean Darcy? Is it?
No, sorry. With Sean Darcy out,
Yeah.
Luke Jackson, is he a play as a guy who you can put in your forward line?
But is this person asking because they own Sean Darcy? Or
No, I think it's just to trade
just
in
asking as a
with
play.
Sean Darcy out. Like, I'm assuming that they're expecting a bump in scoring. He's got Sydney this week, which we obviously just saw English
decent.
put up a 140 against.
Yeah, I personally wouldn't do it, but I wouldn't poo-poo anyone, and I think that they could be laughing all the way to the bank potentially.
696 again, maybe an option if Butters isn't there. I think I'll lump him into that kind of
I think that's fair.
Flanders kind of mould there as well. Boys, thoughts on Johnson to Sarong and Tom Green to LDU?
That sounds like elite. Can I do that?
Mate, Palmy, that sounds like a great trade.
Does that require some cash in the bank?
Should have to.
Should
I'd have
it?
to think Johnson to Sarong would cost you a pretty penny. So
And then
Tom Green to LDU would make you a tiny bit of money.
a little
but
bit of
not
money.
much.
I love that when people get on with the questions, which is just like just flex. They're
Just a
like,
flex,
bro,
yeah.
boys, just tell me
Yeah, just tell me my trades
Yes.
are awesome. And they are.
your trades are awesome, and keep those comments coming.
Geek Dude brought in Soldo last round. Is he a keep or trade this round? I personally, if he's a guy, now I think Bales was having him as his 23rd premium.
Oh, okay, yeah. Geez, Bales must be in a luxurious spot.
Premium. I mean, he's 400k.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
then you can write it out and sort of loop him or something like that if
Yeah.
you wanted to. If he's on your ground, then I think he is probably, in terms of the chopping block, he probably should have got a mention there. But I think he is a guy that you should trade out straight away.
Trying to match you, like you shift that way, and I'm trying to keep it even, and then you come back. I'm trying to.
Would you agree, or would you let him have another week?
Not if he's like a field guy, and I think
I just
Bales
wouldn't get cute with it.
No, I don't think so. I think Bales, the intention there was always as like a carnage cover, and then he was going to shift him. So
Yeah.
and for
If
the
I just
matchup,
look
the West
at
Coast matchup.
the matchups, yeah, only 29% of rucks get to their average against Hawthorn in the last 10 games. So
Yeah.
they are one of the 4 hardest matchups for ruckman in the comp. So
Yep.
yeah, I would not be pushing my luck too much with a Soldo. Should I trade Mills, Ashcroft, or Himmelberg this week? How does Ashcroft fit in with those guys in terms of Himmelberg and Mills?
What did Ashcroft give us on the weekend?
I think it was an 80 or something like that.
I almost have more. I mean, they're playing at the Gabba. We know he likes the Gabba. They are playing Geelong, you said?
Yeah.
Yep, toughish matchup. I almost think he's the guy I'm holding before I hold Himmelberg or maybe not Callum Mills. Like, think about it. Himmelberg's been given a 75. Let's call it that. Yeah?
Yeah.
Ashcroft over
80,
the last
maybe.
3 has been given us more than that. I reckon he's got a big 100 in there in his last couple. What's he going to to?
Who's this? Sorry.
Ashcroft. What's Ashcroft?
Yeah, he had 100 the week
So he's
before.
had
It was
100
against West Coast.
So he's had 95, 113, 82.
So he had 95 in a pacing versus Richmond, 113 in a pacing versus West Coast. His other games, he's gone 82, 80, 71, 74 the weeks. I still fall back on just getting your rookies off the field. Maybe
So
that's lazy of me.
You don't have Himmelberg.
I don't have Himmelberg.
But you're saying you would get rid of Himmelberg before... Sorry, you'd get rid of Ashcroft before you get rid of Himmelberg.
I think I'd get rid of Ashcroft. He's actually worth more than Himmelberg, so you can probably get a better player in the midfield. I'll rule out Mills. I think Mills is the last guy.
GWS play... Who did GWS play this week?
They play Gold Coast. It's not a bad
Where is it,
matchup. Manuka Oval. Where's that?
Canberra, I think.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, Canberra.
Yeah.
What's the weather like in Canberra?
Probably gross. Yeah, it is Canberra.
Yeah,
it's probably fucking snowing at Manuka Road. But remember last time it was pouring rain, we thought, fuck, Himmelberg will do shit.
You and huge.
Snow. He probably loves the snow, the Berg. Or the snow. The iceberg. The Berg, the snow. It's all
going
coming
120.
together for me.
Just a little quick weather update. Not too much rain about. I reckon
For
me, it's Ashcroft.
Are we seriously going into weather updates for the questions? We go into detail. We go.
Give the people the best info that we
Yeah,
can.
I mean, don't ever say that we don't
So
try for you.
I'm saying Ashcroft. Are you saying Himmelberg?
Yeah, I think I am. I think I actually am. He's playing the Gabba, loves the Gabba, and over his last 6 to 8 games, he's actually the lowest score he's given you is a 70.
So Joe, do with that information what you will. Who do you trust more?
Trust Mitch. Yeah.
No, it's probably going to be wrong now. So
I
with your gut. Go with your gut.
I
on that
asked
one.
Mitch all my fantasy questions. So
So we'll see how we go. We've got a stack of questions. A few of them we did cover during the podcast. So
Okay.
I'll see if I can pick out a few that we haven't touched on. Here's one. What's wrong with Sam Walsh?
football or like what?
Why is he not scoring? Why is he not scoring?
I saw
in
a stat
fantasy?
that he's handballing too much. Did you see that? His ratio.
Here's our cat.
This is the first time there's a cat on the table.
She's bold enough. I'll let you say hi, and I'll let you can come off there.
First time. We've been doing pretty well to go all year without a cat jumping on the table.
Finally getting comfortable enough to hop on and say hi to everyone. But what were we saying? Of course, I lost track of thought here.
Me too, actually.
Walsh. Yeah, why is he not scoring? He's handballing too much, you reckon?
Well, I saw a stat that his ratio is very different to his previous seasons. Now, I know that's probably not enough to tick him back up to where we expected him to be.
Yeah.
But it might be something
He's
in
not
there.
tackling either. Look at his tackles. This is actually terrible. He's gone 2 tackles in his last 3 games. Prior to that, 0, 3, 1, 2, 2, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0. He's had no game over 3 tackles this year.
We know he's an elite runner. So what I was going to say is that a guy that can run that well, it surprises me that he's not scoring well. But those tackle numbers are horrendous. So is it Carlton fans can probably let us know, but is Carlton playing a brand that is not conducive to stoppages? Is he just not the primary guy at the stoppage? Like, is he playing?
I was looking at the wrong
else?
category. He actually did have a few games earlier in the season, but it still
It's
stands
still
to
pretty bad.
reason in
Okay.
the recent form. It's pretty bad.
You're getting off Walsh. You got to get off Walsh, don't you?
Yeah. Well, no, not getting off this week.
Yeah. Okay.
Versus West Coast.
Okay.
So you're not getting off this week.
You
wait a week. You give him the West Coast matchup.
Okay.
And then you can decide whether or not you want to cut. But he actually has West Coast, Collingwood, St Kilda in his next 3. So as far as midfielders
Collingwood's
runs,
been better for inside mids recently, hasn't
yeah.
it?
So as far as runs go for mids, it's actually a pretty good one that Carlton have. So I'd personally be giving another week. He wasn't the chopping block because of that matchup this week.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I'd be holding him there.
Any other questions?
Let's maybe do one more. Okay. Do we wait a week on Dust? So I mentioned that before. I think ideally we do. A lot of these ones we have already touched on, but I'll finish on Hewitt's Herd's question here. Sarong and Butters or Merritt and Keys? Who do you like better out of that combo? Well, I don't think you can go into Butters this week.
Yeah. I wouldn't be trading into him, even if he is named.
I will say on Keys, he scored shit, but like we sort of
Right.
mentioned on the top there, his role was actually really good.
Yeah.
So I think if it's a choice between those 2 options, I'd rather Merritt and Keys.
Yeah. Had you asked me last week, I think I probably would have gone the other way, but it would feel weird to a guy that literally hasn't
Yeah,
played
I'd probably
half a
agree.
game of football, and then if you get selected, you're going, well, how
Injury
underdone is
cloud.
this guy? So,
Yeah.
I'd be steering clear
Yeah.
of Butters
Yeah, I'd be
this week.
steering clear of Butters if you don't have him already. This could be a chance to jump up. But I reckon that might do it. I think a lot of those other questions we've answered during the podcast. So hopefully, if we didn't get to your question specifically, maybe shoot us another tweet later on in the week and we'll see if we can get to a few later. But no Thursday night footy this week, so
Yeah.
we'll have plenty of time to still go through some more trade targets on Friday during the live show.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Join us for a beer, guys, if you can. And we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, like the video, subscribe, and we'll catch you guys Friday. Laters!